Unearthed after 1400 years, Zapotec crowd people tomb revealed secrets of an ancient Mexican civilization. Archaeologists in southern Mexico have uncovered a breathtaking 1400-year-old tomb belonging to the ancient Zapotec civilization, offering rare and vivid insight into a culture long shrouded in myth and mystery. Now let's dive deeper and explore every layer of the story on our AI podcast.
Okay, imagine this with me for a moment. A civilization that completely, well, rejects the idea that they came from the ground.
Right. Not from dust or soil.
Exactly. They don't believe they were, molded from clay or crawled out of the mud. Instead, they look up.
To the sky.
They believe they descended from the mist, the fog, the clouds. They called themselves the Biana.
Which translates pretty literally to the cloud people.
It does. And the mythology says that when they died, they didn't just end up in the earth. No, they returned to the sky. They became clouds themselves.
It's such a poetic image.
It really is. But today, we're not just talking about poetry. We are talking about hard physical evidence.
We're talking about a massive archaeological breakthrough in Mexico's central valleys.
A 1,400-year-old tomb has just been cracked open in Oaxaca. And let's be clear, this isn't just a few dusty pottery shards found in the ground.
In some backyard, no. This is being called a time capsule.
A time capsule.
Yeah. And, that term gets thrown around a lot in archaeology, sometimes a little too loosely. But in this case, it really, really fits. Mexican President Claudia Sheinbaum Pardo actually commented on it.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, she called it the most important archaeological find of the last decade.
The last decade. That is a huge claim.
It is. But when you look at the sheer density of the find, the art, the architecture, all the data, you start to realize she isn't exaggerating.
It's the preservation that makes it so special, right?
That's it. It's like finding a library that's been locked in, hermetically sealed for a millennium.
Okay, so here's our mission for this deep dive.
Mm-hmm.
We are going to mentally pry open this tomb.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to decode the symbolism inside, which includes this very intense carving of an owl that completely changes how we see Zapotec royalty.
And we're also going to look at the chemistry of the rituals inside, specifically this resin called copal, and see how the art is basically a documentary.
And then we pivot to a mystery that is, well, literally deeper.
Yeah, an underground network of tunnels that might be even older than the civilization that lived there.
And finally, just to show that the Zapotecs weren't the only ones doing incredible and slightly bizarre things 1,400 years ago, we'll head northeast.
To look at a skull that has been shaped into a cube.
A literal blockhead. I cannot wait to get to that. But okay, let's unpack this. We have to start at the entrance of the tomb in Oaxaca.
Right.
If you're an archaeologist, you brush away the dirt and see this. You're probably dropping your tools. Set the scene for us. The report mentions a guardian.
Okay, so usually when you find a tomb from this period, we're talking roughly 600 to 900 AD, the facade is just weathered.
Sure.
It's beaten down by centuries of rain, erosion, looters. But here, the preservation lets us see the original intent. And dominating the entrance is a massive stone carving of an owl.
But let's be specific here. This isn't some cute, Hedwig from Harry Potter kind of owl.
Oh, not at all. Far from it. This is a predator.
Okay.
The carving shows the owl with its wings spread out, taking up the whole space. But the real focal point is the beak. It's wide open like it's screeching. And inside the beak, emerging from the throat of the bird, there's a human face.
That is such a visceral image. To a modern eye, looking at that without any context, it's a horror movie poster. It looks like the bird is eating the person.
I can see why you'd think that. It's startling. But we have to switch our cultural lens here. We have to see this through the eyes of a Zapotec person 1,400 years ago.
Right.
In pre-Hispanic Mesoamerican cosmology, the owl, specifically a screech owl or horned owl, has a very specific job. It's the sentinel of the night.
So it's associated with darkness.
Darkness, yes, and also the underworld. The owl is the messenger between the world of the living and the world of the dead. It's what we call a liminal creature. It exists on the threshold.
The bouncer at the door of the afterlife.
In a way, yeah. So if you're standing there back then, you don't see a bird eating a man. You see a vehicle.
A vehicle.
The human face emerging from the beak means the person in this tomb, likely a powerful lord, isn't gone. They're being carried. The owl is the vessel for their transition back to the sky.
Which brings it right back to the cloud people idea we started with. This isn't a grave marker, it's a launch pad.
That's a great way to put it. It signals this person has, VIP status, They have a direct line to the divine.
It's political propaganda carved in stone.
Exactly. It validates the power of their descendants by saying, look, our ancestor is riding an owl to the heavens to watch over us.
My dad is an owl cloud now, so you better listen to me.
Precisely. In the ancient world, religion and politics were almost always the same thing.
Okay, so let's move past the bouncer. Once the archaeologists got past this owl guardian, they entered the main chamber. And this is where that time capsule label really earns its keep.
Right, because usually organic material just rots, paint fades. But here,
What'd they find?
the isolation of the tomb created this stable microclimate. It preserved these vibrant murals and intricate carvings that had just been sitting there in total darkness for 1,400 years.
Wow.
And one mural in particular has the experts buzzing. It shows a procession of figures.
And they're carrying something specific, right? The report calls them the copal bearers.
Ah, yes. The copal bearers. This is a crucial detail.
Okay, let's drill down on copal. I see the word. I know it's a type of incense. I've smelled it in markets. But is it just for the nice smell? Is there more to it?
Oh, it's so much more than air freshener. Copal is a resin from the Protium copal tree. It was thought of as the blood of the tree. When you burn it, it makes this thick, heavy white smoke.
White smoke, like clouds.
Exactly. You see the symbolism. The smoke was believed to carry prayers and messages up to the gods. It physically mimics the clouds the ancestors become.
That's incredible.
But chemically, copal is also fascinating. In high enough concentrations, it can have mild psychoactive properties.
So it helps induce a trance state.
It can, yeah. And on a practical level, it's a fumigant.
A fumigant, you mean like to kill bugs?
It purifies the space, literally and metaphorically. It keeps insects and decay away. But the real value of this mural for us today is that it's a visual documentary.
How so?
Well, usually, archaeologists find the hardware. We find a clay incense burner, an incensario, and we have to guess how it was used. We have the tool, but we lost the instruction manual.
Right, we have the VCR, but no tape.
Exactly. But this mural is the tape. We can see the posture of the bearers, the hierarchy of the procession. We can see how the copal was bundled.
It bridges the gap.
It does. It connects the artifact to the actual human behavior. We aren't just guessing anymore. We are seeing the ritual.
You can almost smell it just from the description. But
Yeah.
here's the catch. And there's always a catch in archaeology, isn't there?
Unfortunately, yes.
This brings up the observer effect,
Hmm.
the race against entropy, as the report calls it. As soon as we open the door to see the mural,
We let in the modern world. And the modern world is destructive. You have to understand, this tomb has been in equilibrium for a millennium.
constant temperature, constant humidity, zero light.
And then we bust in with fresh air, flashlights, our own breath.
And it triggers immediate degradation.
It does. Humidity fluctuations cause salts in the plaster to crystallize, which can pop the paint right off the wall. Dormant mold spores can suddenly bloom. Plus, now you have roots seeking the void, insects moving in.
It's such a paradox. To understand the history, you have to risk destroying it.
That is the central ethical dilemma of the field, and that's why the National Institute of Anthropology and History, INH, is scrambling.
They have a whole team on it.
A multidisciplinary team. Chemists, architects, restorers, all working to stabilize the microclimate before they even finish the study.
Mexico's Secretary of Culture was quoted saying this is a compelling example of ancient grandeur, which is a very polite way of saying we better not mess this up.
It's a huge responsibility. They need to extract the data ceramics, bones, iconography before the environment corrupts the file. Every day counts.
Now, speaking of hidden data, this is where it gets really interesting, because the tomb might just be the front door to something much, much bigger.
This is where the story shifts from a single discovery to something that could change how we see the whole landscape.
Enter the subterranean mystery.
Right. So while INH is working on the tomb, another group, the ARX project, led by Marco Vigato, has been conducting surveys nearby.
Near the ancient city of Mitla.
Exactly, right in the same Zapotec heartland. But they aren't using shovels, they're using the high-tech stuff.
Ground-penetrating radar.
Electric resistivity tomography and seismic noise analysis. It's all non-invasive. They are basically X-raying the Earth.
I want to pause on seismic noise analysis. That sounds loud. What is that?
It's actually about listening. The Earth is always vibrating, from wind, ocean waves, even tiny tectonic shifts. Seismic noise analysis measures how those background vibrations travel through the ground.
So it's like tapping on a wall to find a stud.
That's a perfect analogy. The sound changes when you hit solid wood versus empty drywall.
Okay, got it. So they're listening for the hollow spots.
Exactly. It's like tapping on a wall, but on a planetary scale. And when they tapped the ground near Mitla, they found something massive.
Voids. Big ones.
We're talking about a complex network of tunnels and chambers. And not just little pockets. Some of these extend to a depth of more than 50 feet.
50 feet down. That's like a 5-story building buried underground.
Precisely. And the layout implies intelligence. These aren't just random sinkholes.
So the immediate thought is, the Zapotecs built it. I mean, they were incredible architects. They built Monte Alban on a mountain. They could dig a tunnel.
That's the logical first step, but this is where the timeline gets messy.
Uh-oh.
The history of people in the Mitla Valley goes back way, way further than the Zapotec Golden Age.
How far back?
We have evidence of crop domestication in the caves of Mitla that dates back nearly 10,000 years.
10,000
Yeah.
years. So we're talking about the transition from hunter-gatherers to the very first farmers.
We are. So here's the big question. Are these 50-foot deep tunnels Zapotec engineering? Or did the Zapotecs find them?
Oh, that is the plot twist.
Yeah.
Did they inherit this network?
Well, the Zapotec name for the underworld was Lioba, the place of rest. And Mitla was considered the physical entrance to Lioba.
So maybe they built their city there because the tunnels already existed.
It's a very compelling theory. If you walked into a cave and found a tunnel system going down 50 feet, I mean, you would immediately see that place as sacred. You'd build your temples right on top of it to guard it.
It's like a lasagna of civilization.
It is. You have the 10,000-year-old farmers, then the Zapotecs on top, and now us scanning it with radar, and we're only just now peering into those bottom layers.
It just gives you chills. The cloud people who look to the sky were anchored by this deep, dark mystery right beneath their feet.
It shows the duality of their worldview. Sky and earth, light and dark, life and death.
It's fascinating. But I want to pivot for a second, because while everyone is looking down into these tunnels, another discovery was made around the same time, much further northeast in Mexico. And if an owl with a human face is wild.
Oh, wait till you hear about the skull. This is a perfect example of how diverse the archaeology in Mexico is. We're moving from Oaxaca to the state of Tamaulipas.
Okay, so picture this. Archaeologists find a skeleton. It dates to roughly the same time as our Zapotec tomb, about 1,400 years ago. But the skull, it isn't round.
No.
It's a cube,
The technical term the researchers used is parallelepiped.
which is a geometry word I have not heard since high school.
It just means a 3D parallelogram, a rectangular box.
A box-shaped head. And just to be clear for everyone listening, this isn't a genetic mutation. This was done to him.
Yes, this is intentional cranial modification, and it's a practice that requires a huge amount of commitment and risk from the parents.
Because you have to do it to a baby, right? The skull is still soft.
Exactly. You can only shape the skull when the cranial sutures are flexible. In infancy, they would use boards, pads, and tight bindings to compress the forehead and the back of the head.
That sounds awful.
Yeah.
And dangerous. If you do it wrong, you could cause brain damage.
There is absolutely a risk of injury or death, which makes you ask, why? Why take that risk?
It's always the question with body modification. But this is another level.
It's about identity and signaling. In this part of Tamaulipas, the standard cranial modification, if you can call it that, was usually cone-shaped.
So looking like a cone head was the norm for the elite.
In some groups, yes, elongating the skull upwards. But this guy was different. He was a cube in a world of cones.
He was a literal blockhead.
Yeah.
But that must have meant something special.
Well, analysis of his bones shows he wasn't a foreigner. He lived his whole life in Tamaulipas. So this specific shape, this boxy look, was likely a marker of a very specific, maybe very exclusive group identity.
It's the ultimate status symbol. You can take off a crown or a necklace. You cannot take off the shape of your head.
It's permanent. It signals to everyone who sees you, I am part of this lineage. I am elite.
It also shows just how incredibly varied the cultural landscape of Mexico was 1,400 years ago.
That's a huge misconception people have. It wasn't one big monolith. It was a patchwork. You had the Zapotecs building stone owls in the south and other groups in the north shaping skulls into cubes.
Like comparing France and Germany in the Middle Ages. Same continent, totally different vibes.
Exactly. And just like in Europe, these cultures didn't just disappear. And this is a point I really want to drive home, especially about the Zapotecs.
Yes, let's circle back to the cloud people. Because we've been using past tense. The Zapotecs were a great civilization.
We talk about the collapse of Monte Alban around 900 AD, and people hear collapse and think extinction. That's not what happened.
The political structure broke down.
The management changed. The people remained.
And the numbers back that up, right? We're not talking about a few survivors.
No. Today, in Mexico, there are over 400,000 people who identify as Zapotec. They speak the Zapotec languages. They practice the traditions.
So when we look at that mural of the copal procession,
That isn't just a dusty artifact.
Yeah.
That's the ancestor of someone living in Oaxaca City right now. The use of copal still happens today. The reverence for ancestors, still central to the culture.
the cloud people didn't vanish. They adapted.
They did. They survived the collapse of their cities, the Aztec expansion, the Spanish conquest, the modern era. That resilience is just as impressive as any stone owl.
It really reframes the whole discovery. We aren't just studying dead bug under a microscope. We're reading the early chapters of a story that is still being written.
That's the beauty of archaeology when it's done right. It connects the deep past to the living present.
Okay, so let's try to wrap our heads around all this. We've covered a lot of ground today.
We really have.
We stood face to face with that owl guardian, seeing it not as a monster, but as a divine pilot. We went inside and smelled the ghost of copal smoke in that painted funeral procession.
We look 50 feet underground at tunnels that might be older than history itself.
And we took a detour to see a man with a cube-shaped skull who reminds us just how far humans will go for identity. What does it all mean?
I think it's about illumination. For 1,400 years, these stories were in the dark. Buried, hidden, lost. Now, through stone and art and bone, they're finally coming out into the light.
It's like we're finally getting to read the pages of a book that was glued shut.
And we're only on the first chapter of this new discovery. The ARX project is still scanning. INAH is still analyzing that tomb. There are more chapters coming.
Absolutely. And as we wrap up, I want to leave you with a thought that's been nagging at me since we talked about those tunnels.
Go on.
We know the Zapotecs were powerful. But if crop domestication in that valley goes back 10,000 years, and those tunnels are 50 feet deep.
I think I know where you're going with this.
If Zapotec power faded 1,000 years ago, what other secrets are down there? If the Zapotecs were the cloud people because they looked to the sky, maybe the real secret is what they found deep in the earth. Maybe they weren't just the builders. Maybe they were the guardians of something much, much older than themselves.
A question well worth digging into.
Something to think about next time you look at the clouds or the ground beneath your feet. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. Stay curious.
Okay, one question for you. Why is this 1,400-year-old Zapotec tomb considered one of Mexico's most important archaeological discoveries in decades? Don't forget to comment it. Thanks.